listen, right now, I want to just speak, and I'm make sure that we're getting the right thing this time.
All right, well, we're resuming the meeting on a new DVD.
Good.
Was anything recorded from the previous one?
Say
Was
again?
anything recorded from the previous one?
Yes.
Yeah.
He said he's going to
should-
dump them together.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, and this is our
Let's
official.
just start from the top, though.
Okay.
okay. In terms of the nature of our appeal, it stems from the denial of the request we made to have our sewer assessment payments or bond payments or taxation, whatever we may want to define it as, denied. And we had based our request on the fact that we were unable to develop our property for a number of different reasons. And according to the district, we would be required to sign a restricted deed covenant to our property, a permanent covenant that would prevent us from ever developing our property for any reason. And to make a long argument short, what the unfairness that we see in this is the district is attempting to impose a permanent covenant upon our property where we would never be able to develop it in exchange for not having to pay any further assessments and getting a refund on the ones that we have paid. Whereas if time went on and zoning requirements changed and the Granada Sanitation District dissolved and was annexed by the County of San Mateo, something like that came along, we're still stuck with a restricted deed covenant that was imposed under circumstances that didn't have to be permanently imposed, because if we were granted our refund and based on the reasons at this time why we can't develop our property, and we have two very good ones, then the purpose of the permanent covenant becomes extremely unfair, because you're asking us to cut off our arms and legs, and you don't have to cut off anything. You know, if we're looking at it in that sense. And the nature, the character of a permanent deed restriction, the way it stands, where it says, you may do nothing, thou shalt never develop your land again, is basically a taking, because we don't have property after that. All we have is a piece of dirt out there that we can do nothing with. So you have to think in terms of, what does this really mean? Now, the two reasons we can't develop our property, number one, there is a restriction in terms of residential development. Okay, well, the district argued that we could still develop our property for some other purpose. But a number of years ago, the district adopted the rural zoning, whatever you may want to call it, we'll get into that in a minute, ordinance, where there would be no further hookups basically allowed, and if you're zoned in the rural area, obviously the Burnham Strip was part of that. So that restricts, according to my reading of that ordinance, that restricts any type of development that may request a sewer hookup. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. But as far as I know, and I was part of the arguments a number of years ago when that passed, that we're basically cut off at the knees. You can't get a sewer hookup if you're in the rural zone. Now, when we attempted to develop our property residentially, we filed for, and because of the rural zoning ordinance that had been developed, we applied for a septic tank. And the county approved the septic tank. The county approved the septic tank. And after the approval was made, the Granada Sanitation District opposed that. The county didn't necessarily deny our building permit and use permit on the sewer issue or the septic tank issue. They denied it for other reasons, but again, the interpretation from the county council office at that time was the county made the decision to issue a septic permit. And the county's authority to issue a septic permit overrode the Granada Sanitation District's, right to oppose it or authority to have, the final say on it. Now, the county the Board of Supervisors never basically ruled on that, but again, we were opposed from that standpoint. So the ability for us to develop our land for any purpose is blocked, almost completely at this time for a number of different, like I said, a number of different reasons. That could be, for, the district's interest, and it can also be for the restrictive certification that we currently have on the property. So whether the validity of the certification on a property is, could ever be argued or changed, that's in question because the ruling on it was, if you look at it from a point of rule of law, was made erroneously. But again, essentially right now, today,
Which was made erroneously? What were you referring to? You said something was made erroneously?
I'm sorry.
What was it that was made erroneously?
Oh, the certificate of compliance on our property, I call it certificate, but certified. When there was a ruling on the certificate of compliance for our property, when it was made, when a parcel is legalized, they issue the certificate of compliance. They, at the time it's certified, the parcel is made legal in accordance with what the zoning requirements are at the time. Well, our parcel was actually legalized many, many, many years ago, I think back in 1949, but they didn't recognize that legalization because the parcel was divided. So they said, well, since the parcel was divided, then the parcel has to be recertified, which again, case precedent, something like that would have implied or should have implied that the parcel was actually legalized in 1949. But that's not an issue right now because as it stands, the certificate of compliance was issued with a covenant, with a restriction on residential development. And so, again, we're blocked from that standpoint. But again, we're also blocked from any other usage in accordance with the Ordinance 49 on rural development. So for the district to ask us to sign a restrictive covenant that lasts forever and ever is completely unfair. And I can't balance, the justification for it, based on our present situation. Now, not considering the unfairness of it, but considering the regulations that support this supposed authorization that's been granted to the district on regulations that the district wrote. And I know we're all learned people and we can read and that sort of thing. And I've read thousands of pages of government code, code of civil procedure, federal regulations, on and on and on. And I, in my whole life, have never, ever read anything like the Ordinance 153 and the ordinances that encompass and codify the definitions of some of the words that are used in here. I mean, it's hard to fathom. And I don't know where the words came from. And that's why one of my first questions was, who wrote this? Who authored these regulations? In writing regulations, I mean, although the district claims to have, unfeathered authority to do basically what it wants to in terms of maintaining whatever it takes to keep a sanitation district running, there are certain limitations that when a regulation is written, a reasonable person has to be able to understand what on earth it says. And when you get into contingent and non-contingent assessments, there's no such word. I mean, I can't find it anywhere in any other usage. you define an engineer of works. I don't know what an engineer of works is. I know that an engineer of works that's employed by this district is in Newport Beach. What someone in Newport Beach has to do with El Granada is beyond me. I know council is in San Mateo, is in Santa Cruz, and yeah, that's a county away, but still, people are far removed. And so, that sort of thing creates a feeling of distrust. And I think it's something you have to understand, that for average people to come along and try to interpret, what is the Granada Sanitation District doing for me, or Sanitary District doing for me, you have to be able to reach out and touch something that makes you feel like you can trust what's going on. And I appreciate more than anything the purpose of the district. I know that if you do not employ controls on your resources will be gobbled up so fast you won't know what to do. And you'll be overrun, and you'll be in a situation where you have lost complete control, and you're going to end up trying to buy your way out of it, or trying to employ different types of technique that may not get the job done. So I appreciate what you're trying to do. But the argument we're making here is not whether, what the district is doing is right or wrong. We're just wanting to do what's fair. And, we understand that under the circumstances, if the requirement for us to get a refund for the sewer bond or sewer assessment, whatever we want to call it, non-contingent, contingent assessment, and I still don't know the difference. The exchange should at least be reasonable, and if the district or someone can explain to me why a permanent, everlasting deed restriction on our property is necessary in order to grant us the refund, I'd like to know what it is. And based on that, again, I think that the fairness of the situation, has to be in equity with, all of the other circumstances that surround this, this particular situation. If I could ask just very briefly of the board, how many employees does the Granada Sanitary District have? How many employees, not just board members?
Chuck?
We have part-time attorney, part-time general manager. Delia's full-time, and we have a half-time staffer. So.
Do you want to mention contract?
And contract engineer, I'm sorry.
So the sanitary district own sewer processing plants and garbage disposal trucks and all that sort of stuff?
No.
No.
Well, we own a percentage of.
Right, but we need to keep this focused on what the appeal hearing is about, not
Right.
the operations of the district.
Yeah, that actually, in fact, is off topic for the appeal.
The reason I'm asking is, we base the authority of the district on the 1923 Sanitary Act. That was, the purpose of that act was to give sanitary district the authority to, number one, above anything, to collect garbage. And so I think what I'm hearing is that the Granada Sanitary District doesn't collect garbage? You don't have garbage? Who collects garbage around here? I mean, I lived here for a long time, but it's not the sanitary district?
We have the exclusive authority to do it, and we choose to hire a private company under a franchise agreement to do it for us.
So you do conduct that, you contract it to another company then?
Yes.
Okay, and then the sewer disposal plant, if that's run by?
That's owned 30% by this district.
Okay.
It's a shared facility.
Huh. In terms of deed restrictions, how many deed restrictions have ever, like the ones we're talking about here, in terms of getting back a non-contingent assessment, how many deed restrictions have ever been executed?
Staff?
Would you hazard a guess, do they?
3 or 4.
Okay, 3 or 4?
3 or 4? Mhm. And is that recent or? Hmm?
Yeah.
Pretty recent, okay. So, and, okay, so that it has been done before then? Okay.
Are you picking up Delia's answers on your,
Oh, yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah, no, it's original, thank you.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I don't have any more opening statement other than, I would like some sort of a response back in terms of, why the district seems, or feels that it's fair to attempt to impose the restricted deed covenant.
I'm unclear on what title I use for you on this item.
I think Jonathan would be fine.
Okay.
Well, I am here on behalf of the engineer of work. And first of all, let me just say for the appellant's understanding what the resolution that addresses the conduct of this hearing says is that the person filing the appeal, so that would be you and your family, shall present his or her evidence and argument first. So that's the opportunity that was just given to you. And then the engineer of the work, and I'm representing the engineer of work, makes a presentation of evidence and argument, and then each of us gets a chance to rebut. You first, then me. I'm mentioning that because you called it an opening statement, and I think you should be given an opportunity to give your full evidence and argument. And you will get a chance to rebut, and I would hope that the board would be flexible in allowing you to, expand beyond the normal rules of rebuttal and address anything else you wanted to invest in your rebuttal. But unless you wanted to say something more now, I will go ahead and make the presentation on behalf of the engineer of the work. And I'll try to address some of your questions. Let's start with let's start with just the fact that we do have, and this board is operating under a set of rules that were adopted first in the mid-1990s after the residents, the voters of El Granada voted to have an assessment district to pay for the treatment plant. And if the treatment plant had not been built and expanded, this was for the expansion in particular, then there probably would have had to be a moratorium and there could be no building. Because as you were expressing the appreciation for the job that this district and its board has, that's what they have to keep functioning, is sanitary sewers and garbage collection. So when you come to establishing an assessment district, you have to have it pencil out. It has to work financially. And you also have to get a majority vote of the voters in the district to support that. So you have to find a way that you can charge people in the district who own property, some of it developed, some not developed, some anticipating immediate development. All of those people get to vote, and are they going to vote in favor of it, and is it going to be enough to pay the bonds? The people are going to purchase, there can be bonds issued, as there were in this case. Bondholders buy those bonds. The district makes commitments to them as to how the repayment is going to occur, and in order for the bonds to even be saleable, it has to pencil out. So in order to pencil out, you have to say, so who's going to pay assessments and under what circumstances? So the district could not put itself in a situation in terms of penciling out that people could come to it and say, I don't think I'm going to develop right away, so I don't want to pay any assessments right now. I want to wait until just when I'm about ready to develop. Then I'll start paying assessments, because it wouldn't pencil out. You have to have everybody in the jurisdiction paying something for the ability to have that sewer system available, so that if and when they develop, or they even expand their own If they're already developed, they expand some, that there's going to be capacity there. So people with vacant land do have to pay in order for it to pencil out. And there are people with vacant land in our district whose odds of getting development on their property are way slimmer than your situation. Because you do have, in your situation, the county has established what the zoning is, and there are uses that are available on your land, and our Exhibit D spells some of those out, but they include community centers, interpretive centers, even parks or parking or trails or art centers or temporary, art
Yeah.
sales, that kind of thing, yeah. So, and some or all of those might require a sewer connection. That's, the county may have something to say about whether they require there to be restrooms available, shall we say. So that's the position the district and the district bond council found themselves in back in 1994, when they're trying to come up with a way to pay for the treatment plant so there wouldn't be a moratorium. And I know you sent me an email about who wrote this, and it was the District Bond Council, Jerry Laster. And it's, I think if you look in almost every bond, all the paperwork that is done for bonds and the promises that are made to bondholders, et cetera, you would find it's pretty complex. I will agree with you that this one is one of the more complex ones. Because in order to come up with a way to be able to get the majority vote and have it pencil out at the same time, they had to use 3 different improvement acts and meld them together, which is legal to do and has not been challenged, and it's now too late to challenge. And in fact, this board is in a position where they have to make sure this continues to work as we go forward. Because we've had a recession, and part of the funding was planned to come from more development, but there hasn't been much development in the recession here. So they have to make sure that they apply the standard that was established back in the mid-90s as to when do you let somebody get relief from assessment and not pay. And that standard is admittedly a somewhat strict standard, but it was the basis for being able to pencil this out. So what it basically says is either a governmental agency like the county, that'd be the primary agency here that would do this, would have to make a decision that says no development is allowed on this land, period. Or the property owner has to do the equivalent of that and say, I am restricting my property by deed so that it will not be developed in the future. Because the way this penciled out was that people who had a chance to develop in the future, and laws can change, zoning can change, et cetera, and make it easier to develop than it might be right now, that those people had a choice. They could either continue to pay the assessments and hope for development to become easier, or they could say, I want either to pay no assessments, or now in your situation, it's looking difficult to develop, and so I want all my money back, but in order for this to continue to pencil out, you would have to say, but I am agreeing that I will not develop my property in a way that requires connection to our sewer system. So that's the best answer I can give, I think, as to why and how it got developed that way. The actual zoning, the actual assessment district. Now let me go back to your concern about the urban-rural ordinance and your understanding that that meant that no hookups would be allowed on your property. That ordinance actually allows in this rural, where your property is a very special area that was established by the county and the Coastal Commission which is a rural area inside of an urban-rural boundary. It's kind of unusual.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, but that's how that, where your property is. And so, and the plan, the local coastal plan adopted by the county said that our district had to divide our jurisdiction into urban and rural. So that was a little tricky for us because of this area where your property is. It's easy to say, okay, outside the urban-rural boundary line, we will not hook up. And the Coastal Commission actually won't let us do that. Inside the urban, normally you would hook up, but for this rural area inside the urban-rural boundary line, we had to declare you rural, and we did, but we said we can either give you septic, a permit, because we have septic permit authority, I'll get to that in a second, or we can hook you up to our sewer, but you have to come and apply for a determination, which we will do, and if you get a hookup, it will have to be for a use or a development that is, quote, commensurate with the local coastal plan. So that's how it got set up, and so we do not have something that says, under no circumstances would we hook up your property to the sewer. As to the septic, I'll just mention that quickly because I don't think it's necessarily that important to the decision the board has to make, but the county does have its own septic tank ordinance. Our district has had a septic tank ordinance probably since its inception or pretty close to that, for a long, long time. The county and this district have disagreed for a long, long time as to who has jurisdiction. Our latest discussions with them are we have mutual jurisdiction. In other words, you have to get it from both of us. So that's where that lies at this point. So the board is to look at this and apply the rules that have been established back in the mid-90s, and those, like I said before, require either the county or some other critical governmental agency say there's no way this property can be developed at all. That has not occurred. So then, in order for the board to approve a relief from assessment, they have to have assurance that it will not ever be developed. And it's understandable why you might not be willing to agree to that. But the way this assessment district was set up, then you have to continue to pay the assessments. So that's where we are right now. And I just want to indicate that we did, the district did send some letters to at least some of your family members that were making inquiries back at the time of the urban-rural ordinance, and after that, indicating what the process was, and that you would have to apply to the district to get a determination as to whether it would be septic or sewer for your property. And that has not happened. And I just, because this is, an appeal hearing and there's a certain formality about it, I would like to make sure that it's clear that the record would include all of the staff report, all of the district ordinances and regulations that are related to this. We've attempted to give the appellant copies of the ones that we think are the most relevant. In fact, the only ones that I can so far see are relevant, but it would also include the letters that we have sent in the past. And we did have a letter that kind of went through the history of Exhibit E to the staff report, just to be sure that it's clear that that's all part of the record. And with that, we'll close.
I'd like to mention, you said something that implied something that's not quite right. The district didn't decide on the rural land within the, state this carefully, the rural land that's on the urban side of the line. The district didn't make the determination of which land that is. The district adopted a map prepared by county staff for various hearings at the county. So it was not our decision at all, we just used their map.
Certainly, if I said that, I didn't mean to, because I thought I was saying that the LCP contains that, and in fact, as President Warren is pointing out, it was based on a county map that the county adopts its own LCP first and then has to get it approved by the Coastal Commission. And so at both levels, that's the map that was used. So we were using that map.
I just thought it was important to get on the record that it wasn't our decision which land is in that section.
That's absolutely correct.
So is that the end of your?
That's the end of my evidence and argument, subject to rebuttal after the appellant's rebuttal.
All right, so now would be the time for the appellant's rebuttal.
Could we get your name for the record, please?
Pardon?
Could we get your name for the record?
Oh, Craya, C-R-A-Y-A, Caron, C-A-R-O-N.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, based on, the determination, it was that there's a possibility that we could get a septic permit from the district. The opposition that we received when we had gotten the septic permit from the county, the opposition that the district raised when we had gotten the septic permit from the county, gave us the impression that the district would not approve our septic permit. And I'm not 100% sure that that interpretation is correct, but, at the time, that seemed to be everyone's, and when I say everyone, our family, the county planning department, and various other interested parties who were working on the project. So, if there is still a possibility that we could get a sewer permit, I mean, looking at it realistically, to me, I would venture to guess that the district would probably deny it. But I think that if there's room for compromise here, why can't we, make this a little bit more fair and say something like, instead of a 100% restrictive covenant, we enter into an agreement that if we do develop our land, we pay back whatever assessments would be due, within a reason, as long as it's not 30 years from now, you'd say we owe 30 years worth of assessment, but something that's reasonable to pay back that we would have to pay if, in fact, we ever do get a sewer hookup. So, on one hand, the district has a guarantee that we won't develop the property, but if we do, if we have the opportunity, if the zoning requirements change and they put in high-rise, condos all along the Burnham Strip and, all hell breaks loose in development on the coast, that our piece of property is not going to be sitting there, as a little parking lot or something. But, in that sense, then it seems like it'd be a win-win situation. At least we don't have to keep paying for nothing, and you would have the guarantee we're not going to develop, but if we do, we have to pay you back. I mean, I don't see why that kind of a compromise can't work. Again, equating it to, we're cutting off arms and legs, and by a completely permanent deed restriction, and the district not having to cut off anything. So I would offer that as a compromise, and you wouldn't have to make a decision on it. You could think about it or talk about it, but in terms of fairness, that seems like it's more fair, because at least in generations to come, whoever owns the property has some sort of a chance, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, who knows? So, employing, such a permanent restriction, just doesn't seem fair under the circumstances. I'd like the board to seriously consider that. And two, we have made the offer that if the district would be interested in purchasing our property, we'd be glad to sell it to you at a very reasonable rate, meaning that, you could pay us back in 10 years, something along that line. I don't know what the district's interest is in promoting, the uniformity of that particular area of El Granada. But, the Harbor District has bought one of the parcels, and, the other parcels of people that I know who own them, there's some power brokers out there who, eventually they're gonna do something. And in terms of, our family's involvement, we don't have a lot of aggressive tendencies in terms of doing as much as we can to get it developed because, for us, it's just not worth it. So, that's why we applied for the refund in the first place. I mean, we're saying, well, we're not going to develop it. We don't have any immediate plans. We are restricted basically from selling it because we're stuck with, at least to a private investor or a developer, because of the fact that, there may be, so many headaches to developing it. So, and I'd also like to throw that out as part of my rebuttal in terms of making some sort of a compromise. Because, there's a lot of usefulness from an environmental standpoint that the land stands for and can be used for. And whether the uses be temporary, whether they be community involved, people suggested a number of things to do, but I'd like to also leave that as an alternative too, because if we get into the argument of restrictive covenants and takings and all that kind of stuff, that's the square it's going to throw us into. If the district is acting, as a governmental agency and attempting to employ, again, a permanent a disability upon the property, we have to think in terms of, gee, we really don't mind going that route, but it has to be some sort of a financial reward, at least so we could walk away from the property, not feeling like it was a total loss. Because if we just sit on it the way it is and we pay the $380 per year, eventually we're going to win something. Something is going to happen to the property. It has to. I guarantee it. I would sell my, my coronary arteries on it. Something is going to happen. It has to. Whether it turns into a park, whether it turns into any other type of community amusement, environmental sanctuary, whatever, something is going to happen to the property. So we're going to win eventually if we just hang on to it. But like I said, if that's not our immediate need, then, and we can't come to a compromise on this, then that would be our only alternative. But if the district did own the property, then they would have a much greater, and the location of the property is right smack dab in the middle of the strip. And the parcel next to us is owned by the people across the street who own the little Spanish stucco house. But, there's a lot of advantages to the property. But, in terms of further arguments, that's, basically, all we have. And the district can make a determination from there.
Okay, if that's the end of your rebuttal argument, we go to Jonathan's rebuttal for the engineer's work.
Okay, I will try to be brief. First of all, let me just say that the idea is about the district acquiring the property. That's not relevant to this, and the board can't consider that, even if they could, under the circumstances, acquire it somehow. And that maybe just to try to eliminate the question about the impression that was created by the district's communications to the county, I think it was back in around 2008 or 9, about the application that the county ultimately ended up denying. I think that the appellant's family got in the middle of what has been a long disagreement, as I said earlier, about who has jurisdiction over septic permits. And the district was definitely protecting its turf there, and did not feel that the county treated us as a responsible agency in the process, which we believed was legally required. And, you know, we do have different requirements as well for septic permits than the county does, and you have to apply to us as well, that kind of thing. So I can understand how an impression could have got created, but the reality is that it's more about the county and the district as we are gradually working together to find a way to handle those situations, hopefully going forward, so that each of our jurisdictions is recognized. So let me just address what, you know, from, it's an understandable proposal that was made as a, you know, to come to a compromise. Unfortunately, it's not that simple when you're dealing in assessment district and bond situations. As I was indicating earlier, and I won't repeat about the penciling out and so forth, but in order to sell bonds, you have to give assurances to the bondholders that they're going to be paid back. So decisions have to be made back at the time the bonds are sold, and assurances are made to those bondholders that these are the rules that are going to apply. And so if they could have back then have set up a rule that said, okay, well, we will let people not pay the assessments if they'll promise to pay it all back when they do develop. 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, whatever later. But that would not pencil out. And I mean, at least I was not here back then, but there, if you, it's not even reading between the lines. If you look at the bonds documents, you can see that that's the assurance they're trying to give, is that those people who own property are either going to have to pay the assessment so that this will pencil out, or they're going to have to agree or get a governmental agency to say that they cannot develop their property. We're not going to have that other option. And you can understand why that would be the case, because you need to be able to sell those bonds, and bondholders don't want an iffy situation in which over time, person after person, property owner after property owner can come in and say, well, it's looking like maybe my property's not going to develop. Can I put off paying? Because that income stream is relied upon by the bondholders to make sure that they are going to get paid back because they have loaned money to the public entity that is building the treatment plant. So that is unfortunately the reality, and you can't undo that right now. In other words, these bonds have been sold in reliance on those rules. And to go and amend that is, I would say, impossible, but at minimum, very difficult to do, and would be enormously expensive to go through a whole new bond process, that kind of thing. So, unfortunately, I think that the reality is that tonight, anyway, the decision before your board is, what are the rules that were established when the bonds were sold? We know what they are. Has the appellant met the burden of proof that they comply with those rules? And I submit that the answer to that is no, and I would ask that the board deny the appeal.
If that's the end of the rebuttal, then the appeal presentation portion of the appeal hearing is now closed, and we will bring it to the board for discussion. I made a couple notes, but I'm not sure how to approach it. This is regarding some of the legal technicalities in the assessment district structure. It's my understanding, and of course all this was done before I even heard of the Granada Sanitary District, but it's my understanding that when the bonds are paid off, the contingent assessments that are collected from that point on will then be used to pay back the non-contingent assessments that people have paid and not utilized, something like
And
that.
that's how I understand it also.
Um,
I hope to be retired by then, so.
I think it's
Sounds to
only,
be
I think
complicated.
it's only 2022.
Yeah, it's not long.
And I remember some giant whiteboard flow chart done by bond counsel to try and explain this to the board a long time ago. And so my recollection of one of the points there is that if the county declares a property undevelopable, the district then has a special fund, and I don't know how much money's in it at this point, but the district has a special fund that was created at the time to buy back the assessments from properties that the county's declared non-developable.
Right, which is the same process as this relief process, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So, anything?
Well, just the general comments. I think our board has been, over the years and years, and now decades, since some of these laws were brought in, been very consistent and straightforward in the application. And we have county law, we have local coastal program, we have California law, and we have all of our ordinances. And I think over time, we've been absolutely consistent in what we've done. So I think that's been very good. I think every application since I've been here for a sewer permit has been approved.
As far as I know, that's correct.
And we have ordinances for variances, and we've got applications for those, and those have all been approved because everything has matched our ordinances down the road. And as was stated by Delia earlier, we've had people who have done the deed restrictions and said we will not develop, and then we give them their money back. So we've been very consistent there. So I don't know how we can do anything else but continue to be consistent with our policies and not make more exceptions out of them. It seems like we'd be opening the door to everybody then, or everybody who had come in and given us their deed restriction would then come back and say, well, hey, wait a minute.
Right.
So I think we just have to continue to remain consistent and obey our ordinances.
I think that the reason the assessment district ordinance was written the way it was written is, and Jonathan touched on this somewhat, is that if people who could use sewer capacity in the future were allowed to bail out up front on the assumption that they could buy in later, then everybody would bail out and there wouldn't be any money to make the bond payments.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and one of the main points. Point number one is, once again, these rules were laid out in 1996, and we made promises to the bondholder, like Jonathan said, that we've got to keep, and we should not change the rules. And in response to the appellant's compromise, quote unquote, everyone, like you say, everyone would do it, the income stream would dry up, and, the assessment district would falter, and we'd be in a lawsuit with bondholders. So I think those are the two of the main points.
Now, I don't think I've seen the actual deed restriction language, but wouldn't the deed restriction say not develop using sewer capacity rather than just not develop?
Yes, it could. And I think Tausig used
Is that in here?
language to that effect.
I don't remember seeing that. That's in here? Can you tell me how far into this large set of paper that is?
Yeah, which it's the second bullet on the first page of Tausig's letter. It says,
Okay, but how far in is his letter?
It's Exhibit A, it's the first thing after the staff report.
so it says, it must first obtain from the owner a restricted covenant deed restriction, which would bind and restrict the property to not use the sewer system in a manner enforceable by the district. So it says nothing about development.
Okay, so so that's a key point, and the reason I was asking is because the appellant kept saying that the deed restriction would prevent development, and in fact, the deed restriction would only prevent any development that would require connection to the sewer system.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, in light of what we have in the written record and what we have heard tonight in the hearing, and bearing in mind that the district does continue to have a fiduciary responsibility to keep the assessment district going and viable and paying those bonds off, and that the procedures set forth in our ordinance have the force of law, and none of us was here when those were passed. But it's basically the law, and so it has to apply, and in fact, it has been applied equally, as Rick has mentioned, in other appeals. I will make the motion that we deny the appellant's appeal, and that the procedure that is set, well, this isn't part of the motion. The motion is to deny the appellant's appeal, and I'll just comment that the procedure as set forth, we don't have much wiggle room. It should be adhered to.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstention, or any noes? Any abstentions? Motion passes 4-0. So that concludes this agenda item. We'll move to item 2. For this item.
I'd like to say I thank the board for your time and your attention. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I should read the title of the agenda item here.
Yes.
Didn't take my agenda out of the packet this time. This is consideration of LAFCO application for potential reorganization into a community services district with parks and recreation powers. And there's a speaker slip for item 2B. And so when we get to 2B, I'd like to run a little informally so that we can have some back and forth. The speaker slip is from Louis Fagani.
You want to get to 2B now?
Whatever order you want to.
Yeah, let's
Probably
start.
do
Let's
2B
start
first, 'cause
2B.
they've been
Yeah.
waiting.
Yeah, this is the gentleman I just reported.
All right, so do you want to come to the public microphone?
Can I read that?
Sure.
I don't know, with the trouble I had raising it. Maybe not, right?
This is,
Do you have a copy for me or not?
yeah, this is in response to the proposal that was sent to the Ag Advisory.
Right.
Thank you.
You want any more copies? Okay, this is Louis Fagoni. I'm a farmer, and I'm also Ag Advisory Committee person.
So, since I'm not clear on exactly where your property is, could I ask you to actually point on our large satellite photo to where your specific property is?
Well, there's 4 parcels that are, this doesn't show the whole parcel.
About the upper right.
I am right here. Okay, it goes back to, but we also have, this is a PAD piece of property, this is a PAD property, and I believe this is also PAD. I'm sorry, it's over there. The Sterling property.
Oh,
Dan
okay.
Sterling property. There's Valadale, Sterling, Patty's, and myself that have PAD lands within the district. The original proposal that the district sent to the Ag Advisory Committee chairperson wants to, you refer to prime ag land. That won't work because every parcel that we're talking about has non-prime and prime. So it has to be PAD land. Also, you mentioned in here that to protect agricultural operations, that you would provide private property signs, and I don't think you mentioned fencing or anything like that, but as the chair, Bob Marsh of the Ag Advisory Committee has farmland within post property, and it is fenced and signed, and it doesn't work. People jump the fence. This is the property south of town, the trail that Post put in. So that's why we're asking that if any development that the district for parks that is adjoining PAD lands would have to be approved by the San Mateo County Farm Bureau. We would like a MOU, the district here, to go enter into an MOU with the San Mateo County Farm District. That's my presentation.
Changing the I don't even know how to categorize what I'm trying to say, but changing the consideration from ag land, and I personally, as one director here, I don't have a problem with dropping the prime part and just referring to ag, but my concern is that there's a lot of use of PAD that's not ag, and so that's why I think the original proposed policy was drafted referring to ag, because in particular, in San Mateo County, there's no residential estate zoning, and so the PAD property ends up serving to many people as if it was a residential estate. And so it doesn't get used for ag.
You're wrong there, Mr. Warren. PAD, even though it's not prime, it's watershed land, and that's what makes the prime land viable for agriculture. We need that watershed land.
Well, I certainly understand watersheds.
If I can just jump in, are there other PAD parcels?
Well,
I mean, besides the ones we're specifically talking to, or is there PAD which you don't consider?
This is PAD. Okay, and as long as it remains in ag use, that's fine. But I guarantee you the property owner does not intend to keep that indefinitely in ag use. And so I don't want the district to be restricted when that turns into something that's not ag use.
But we're not asking you, we're asking you to drop the eminent domain part, and as you told at the April 18th meeting, that you would only buy from willing sellers.
I would think that I had stated it as ag land, but ag zoning that's not being used for ag and isn't going to return to ag use.
Well, if that's PAD, if he wants to do something with that, he would have to go to have it rezoned. That would put it in a different category.
Well, that's true. That's a significant point. So,
I mean, I don't have any significant objections to it, so I'm just trying to think, is everybody covered?
The Ag Advisory Committee is willing to work with you on the verbiage, whatever we'll work for both of us.
Agricultural ideas for district. I mean, what does PAD stand for again?
Planned Agricultural District. And realize that the hotel, the giant hotel in Princeton, was built on prime ag land.
But with the zoning change.
Yeah.
I
They're
assume
not
so, that
allowed.
was way before I lived in the area.
It was also the zone in that.
Well,
Well,
it was,
I mean, we can go further back. All of El Granada was one time artichokes. That was, you know, I mean, your house is on prime ag land.
my house is on wetlands, sorry.
Well, that wouldn't be allowed today.
Well, and if I'd been here, it wouldn't have been allowed at the time.
But you see where I'm coming. I mean, there's, now, what I presented to you is just very simple verbiage in my layman's terms, okay? And I feel the simpler it is, the better for everyone to understand.
So Jonathan, would you have any input on this? Or you want to think about it a little more?
Well, I think it would be good to think about it a little bit more, but I'd like to know the board's input too. But my one concern is having an MOU, but I would like to explore ways to do that. There are some restrictions on a governmental agency basically contracting its governmental power or authority to a private party. And the Farm Bureau is a private party.
But there's already been a precedent.
Is that right?
Midpen
They did an
is
MOU?
in a MOU with the Farm Bureau.
They do.
Okay.
There was one thing, I don't know if the mid-pen is special, when I talked to them, Lou, they said that they went and got a law passed by the California legislature. And that was just my thing, that an actual, because it was so contentious, that California passed a special law saying this is what the restrictions are. And I don't think we have the power to go that far to get the legislature, so anything else we can do. But I think Mid-Penn got not a special deal, because they had to really work hard, that they got a law passed. I don't know if that's different than something we could even do. That was my understanding from them.
They're so different, and they cover such a larger area too.
And, you know, considering that our legislators are limited in how many bills a year they can carry, they're not gonna do
Yeah,
a
I mean,
special law just for the
If we can
school
do
district.
something that's just us without having to pass a California law.
Now, you know, before we even get to that level, though, I am a little apprehensive about the broad language in paragraph 2. Now, I think that it's probably really unlikely that we're ever going to own any property adjacent to the PAD land, but, you know, since it's hard to, you know, see that far into the future, I just feel a little uncomfortable that this might bind the district in a way that, you know, at some point in the future might not be the best thing. So I'm wondering if there's some different way to accomplish the protection that isn't this, I mean, this is a bright line restriction that, you know, sometime in the future could end up being problematic for the district. So,
Yeah.
Are you thinking if in the future that if this would be changed, in other words, that what now they have is pad zoned lands, there might be a change in the future to that?
no,
So
I'm
the
saying
area right now
that
isn't-
since we don't know what land the district might acquire, you know, 5, 10, 20 years from now, there's the potential that the district could acquire some land that is adjoining a PAD parcel, and, you know, depending not necessarily on much more than the personalities involved at that time, the district might propose something that the Farm Bureau doesn't like for whatever reason, even though it's not necessarily an inherent problem. And, you know, come to think of it, the district actually owns a parcel. Oh, boy, can I spot it? One of these parcels in here, the district owns, and that's adjoining PAD land. And so we'd be bound by this to do anything with that parcel that we already own.
Do you have plans for that parcel? No.
We're not a Parks and Rec district, so it's never been on the agenda.
But that adjoining PAD land eventually will be changed. The zoning, the owner there eventually will probably try to change it for development. Like you stated, you said it won't be staying farmland. I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, I know the landowner, if it's the same owner as the hotel.
It is. Well, he'll just wait for the next corrupt coastal commission like there was in 1985.
Leonard, that's
The,
fine.
one of the other kind of thoughts we had, I'm not sure how much going back and forth has gone back and forth, but the part about if the property owner appeal applies for a development permit, we would then have the option to go in.
Right.
Was that still on the table or discussion?
Yes, because then you're talking about a zoning change.
Okay. So that was.
And that's pointed out in here, that if they do go for that change and we have a need for Parks and Recs on that land.
We're only talking about PAD land.
Right.
If they go, you know, if someone goes for a zoning change, then it's a different story. It's an open book.
So is staff, particularly council, comfortable that this is not going to create any potential major problems for the district's general philosophy down the road?
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand what is being proposed here. Is it we adopt our policy, but then we enter into an MOU with the Farm Bureau that says these two things? Is that the idea, or is it that our policy goes away?
The policy goes away and it's just
replaced
this.
by these two things?
Yes. And I don't want an answer tonight. I mean, you guys think about it, discuss it, and I can have a dialogue with Jonathan here or whatever.
That would be
If he
great.
wants to go through our chair, Bob Marsh, is fine.
Okay.
Because I know one thing we discussed when I was at the meeting, I'm not sure who brought it up, whether it was you, but if we, for instance, acquired a larger parcel that touched, we would probably work out some kind of buffer zones and
Right.
things like that, so it wasn't, I wouldn't like restrict the whole property.
Yeah,
But
that's a good point.
That was sort of just working, we would work that out with you folks.
Yeah.
Because, we probably, everybody would want a buffer zone if the property were large enough, that sort of thing. But-
Yeah, so come to think of it, based on that, I would like to see paragraph 2 modified to specify, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 foot buffer zone or something.
I don't know if you really want to lock something down, specifically, but
Or, well,
we certainly would bring, all proposals would immediately go through the Farm Bureau and the Ag Advisory
Leonard,
Council, so it's just how to.
It depends on the terrain too.
Yeah.
500
Yeah.
feet could be plenty,
Yeah.
200 feet could be plenty. It all depends on the terrain and the accessibility to the ag land.
Yeah.
We have to look at each different scenario differently.
So you had mentioned that the signs and the fencing aren't working in some locations, so what has been done?
Nothing, in fact, Post had hired, what's the nursery out here?
You see the-
Go Native.
Oh,
Go Native
okay,
was
yeah.
patrolling that,
Yeah.
and then the contract ran out, so there's no patrolling down there. And Bob has people walking through his fields. He says, and there's no dogs are supposed to be allowed there. He says people are bringing dogs in. And that's against the Home Security Act, the Food Security Act. He's growing vegetable crops down there, and you can't have dogs running out in the field.
And this area is fenced?
It's fenced, yeah.
Now, where is
The
this?
trail is fenced. The trail goes right through his fields, because he bought the property from Post, and Post retained the easement for the trail, when in fact the trail should have been put near the bluff top, and then he would have been in a lot better position, but now it goes right through his field.
I have some clients that
I mean,
live
it's-
next to a state park and they have the same problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that it's in the best interest of most of our constituents that we protect farming operations
Yes.
on the coast side.
Yes.
I imagine that the vast majority of our constituents would want us to take any reasonable measure to make sure that farming remains
Yes.
viable and active.
So, I mean, that's the message that Chuck and I have gotten from the board as we try to, and Ryan from my office, that we try to go forward. I think that what we really need, though, is to sit down and do a brainstorming session with you or Bob Marsh.
And
you know,
several
you guys are
others,
really
maybe,
busy,
you
and
know.
several
Yeah.
others, whatever it takes. Because at our next agenda in October will be our last chance to adopt something before the scheduled LAFCO meeting. And we're
Does-
going to need to have this in place
Yeah,
before that.
yeah.
Does this have to be done before the LAFCO approval, or can it be as late as when LAFCO does the order after the public vote?
I would like to have.
For a variety of
I'd
reasons,
like
it
to
should be
have
done
a-
before
A
LAFCO.
permanent agreement with
Yeah.
Right.
the whole like council before we have LAFCO.
So
I
our
would like
main-
that wrapped up.
Yeah, our main issue here has been getting in touch, I think, with Bob Marsh and people from your group, so.
Yeah, I think that's really important to learn more too about what public properties, where things are working, where it's not working. Like you just mentioned, I'm looking at Midpen or Post or now GGNRA property. And what's.
See, I
working,
border
what's not working.
GGNRA also.
Yeah.
I do want to say that, I mean, we were told by the board, and I think it came from the Agriculture Advisory Committee for the county, that we should do what Mid-Penn did. So I personally called Mid-Penn, and I've talked to both their staff and their attorney, and they sent me what they said they did, but it didn't include an MOU, so I would like to get their MOU.
Yeah.
Do you want me to get you a copy
I
of
would
the
love to have
MOU?
that, that would be really helpful.
Okay.
I mean,
Here's-
as far as
Jonathan,
changing
here's-
from prime ag to PAD, I have no problem with that.
Okay,
It's
great,
just
thank
Me
you.
either.
The
No, I-
definition, so, I mean, the PAD designation's fine for me,
Yeah.
so we don't have to say
So-
prime ag, if that's a better, more generic
So-
term. Like you
so-
said, it's got to go through a zoning change.
So-
And then,
We,
Sorry.
you know, we would like to sit down with you guys and just
Yeah, yeah.
hash it over. It's not,
Yeah, I would just ask that this be done, somewhat expeditiously,
Yeah.
because
Sure.
we're, our understanding is we're going to be on the LAFCO agenda in November, and we don't want it delayed, because we really want to
this
get
coming
this.
November?
Yeah.
Yeah, we really want to get this to the voters on the June ballot, and if we don't get it completed by LAFCO at their November meeting, it puts that schedule at serious risk.
So realistically, we're looking at trying to work something out in the next 3 weeks, because we've got another meeting in
we have
October.
their meeting also.
October 17th.
yeah, we,
I'd like to have something worked out before your October meeting.
the problem with our meetings is if there's nothing that the county has, the meetings get canceled. I mean, if there's nothing coming up that for us to address. As far as the Ag Advisory,
Maybe we'd be on the.
Farm Bureau, we meet every
Can
month.
we get on the agenda, though?
But the Farm Bureau,
Yeah.
On the county.
Yeah, we could get you on the agenda, the Ag Advisory, and then we would have a meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd have a reason there.
Yeah.
All right, so Jonathan will work with Mr. Fagoni
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Mr. Marsh.
Yeah, I think we're open, and I think the basic format here is fine, and if the little legal dots and things are worked out.
Yeah.
Jonathan he knows our intent, so.
Yeah.
So
Well,
is that-
since Rick's been closer to you guys than the rest of us, and I can go with his suggestion tonight, and I think that staff has a pretty good understanding of what the board, in general, is interested in, so I have faith that staff can work out something that's acceptable to you guys and to the board.
All right.
And
Okay.
so you'll target,
Thank you. I'm
So-
sorry it
so
took me
you'll-
so long to get here.
so you'll target, bring it back to us at our next
Yeah.
regular meeting.
Yeah.
So I will ask Bob Marsh, our chair, to put you on the agenda, and then he will send it to the county.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Now, you can only send 2 board members, right, because of the Brown Act.
We can only send two, yeah.
Yeah, but you two can attend, but 2 board members can come also, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
good. You think that would help? Or should
Whatever.
we try to
I
work
mean,
out ahead of time, or
yeah,
what?
what I found is the more the board knows, the better.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Rick,
absolutely.
will you be able to make that meeting?
Really depends.
When-
Time of day,
Yeah, yeah. No, I would like to.
What is the date
attend
again?
too, yeah.
You have it?
The next meeting, it's the
We have a calendar.
third, I think it's the third Monday of the month.
21st of October.
So you're gonna be after we have to act. Ours is October 17th.
Well, the third Monday this month is a few days from now.
So
Oh, wait a minute, no, it's past.
Yeah.
I counted wrong. Missed it by that much.
We do not have a meeting this month, September.
Well,
The Ag
if-
Advisory.
If you have agreed to a format and we approve it in front of them,
Well, someone's got to approve it
yeah,
first.
so, I mean, that's okay, and we could approve it and then 4
Alright.
days later.
And if we need to have a special meeting, we need to have a special meeting.
We hope we
too.
can all agree on.
Yeah.
All right,
But
so,
I think, you know, your board was, you know, we were all discussing that well, so I think if you guys had agreed to something, they would seem like you've taken all their interests, you know, sort of like Jonathan's. You're kind of representing them when you come
Yes.
to the agreement, so I wouldn't see that they would argue strongly if, you know, you folks have already worked something out, but then we could have an emergency meeting if we had to.
Right.
Or a final tweak
We
if we
always
had
can,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, we
Okay.
might have
That's
a
great.
special
you.
meeting.
Yes.
Thank you for the time. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for showing up, thank you.
For us to have an emergency meeting, I mean, literally, there'd have to be exploding sewer pipes or something.
That's why we have you here.
Actually, my understanding from listening to prior discussions on the CSD, that everything having to do with CSDs, getting to November was an emergency. Did I misunderstand?
No, that's right.
It's approaching that. Okay.
Just for the record, I don't know who was on all the emails I've sent around, but we got formal approval from the Highlands Recreation District, which is a CSD.
Oh, I guess I was not totally
We got
clear on that.
board approval, so we have a letter is filed on us.
Have you sent that letter? I didn't get you had asked me if the MCC one was on there, and I had started to send you a reply saying, it wasn't, but it is now, and then my computer crashed.
And
It
also,
is.
we got the Coastside Land Trust.
Great.
Formal letter has been sent in by Joe.
Yeah, I bet that took a lot of arm twisting.
So that was 2 additional endorsements from agencies.
I don't know why I'm going to any meetings. If you're having more success than me, Rick.
So I watched that part of the school board meeting,
That
and
part,
when Chuck was there.
oh.
And I'm a little disappointed that you run a little stronger on it, but then I'm seriously disappointed that they didn't even agendize it to take action.
Yeah, and they told me that beforehand, which kind of threw me off. I was laughing. Someone asked me how the meeting went, and I went and said, well, it went good and bad, because when I talk, I have Jonathan on my shoulder telling me, you can't advocate. Well, it's difficult to discuss something if you're not advocating for it. So yes, I felt the same way. I felt constrained, so.
But then the real annoyance is they didn't agendize it to take action.
It was a very strange meeting, so I went and spoke, and I probably only spoke for 3 minutes. And the reaction was muted. I don't know if you noticed that too. It was
Yeah, I was
almost
wondering
a
if-
general lack
I was
of-
wondering if they actually understood what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Did they?
Is this going to be agendized for next meeting?
Yeah. I don't know. I just traded an email with Tony today, so we'll find out, so.
Why don't you draft a proposed letter for them to approve?
Well, that's
Send
what I
it.
think I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting meeting. It was the first one I had done, and it kind of took me off guard a little bit with this whole, we're not going to take any action, and then why are we talking about it? And I would have thought they had more interest in it. And, that's a mistake on my part, I guess, because I thought they'd be the district most interested in it. And they just didn't seem, moved one way or the other, I mean, when I met with the Parks and Recreation District of Havlin Bay,
Mhm.
they were interested.
Commission.
Commission, they were excited, just kind of a different vibe, I guess, is the thing, so. So
You
that
have
was my
anything?
meeting with them, so I followed up with Tony, and I'll let you all know. And I
Tony?
sent around, Tony Rorick, the superintendent,
Oh,
I sent around an email right before this meeting. They've got some district collaboration meeting. They're looking for people to attend, and I had sent it to Rick previously. It's the 27th, next Friday at 1 o'clock.
yeah, I can probably make it depending on whether it's a couple hours versus 4 or 5.
I can't imagine it'd be more than a couple. Did he say 2.5 hours, I want to say, was the limit?
Sorry, I checked my business calendar, we have standing meetings at 1 o'clock. so-
Yeah.
Oh, let me know. Yeah, I go to the school, I work with the school district all the time.
All right, so I only had time
It
to,
sounded like they really wanted
I'm not supposed to district.
one of us there.
I only had time to glance
Or
at the
two,
email,
up to
but,
two of us.
you know, tentatively I can make it. Does it give the location?
The district offices.
So it's their boardroom?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll plan on being there, and Gail? Okay. And this is just broad discussion?
I think it's broad discussion on how the districts can work better together. I didn't read much into the email, quite honestly, because I had a deluge of other stuff, so.
Now, in terms of advocacy, since the directors are not there at district expense, is there any advocacy issue with us pushing the proposal?
No.
And the way that I can see pushing it is that, you know, with the district's perpetual money situation and how overused the ball fields are, if this district as a CSD can either provide additional field space to take some of the pressure off of their fields to let them recover better, or as Dave Holland asked me a whole bunch of years ago, you know, could the Granada CSD kick in some money to help maintain the ball fields there? I said, I don't know how much. And he said, like $25,000 a year. And I said, somehow I think the board would probably be okay with that.
Yeah, and they were, the school district board, I won't say, they were kind of grasping for how this partnership would work out. And I
Right,
mentioned a
yeah.
few things like that, but just, like I said, just kind of, the whole thing kind of surprised me, quite honestly. You know, it wasn't my best performance, and it was kind of taken back by their reaction a little bit, so.
I'll have to go see if they have the packets online. Do you know if there was anything from you in the packet?
Yeah, there was a bunch of things. They do have packets online.
Okay.
I researched that before I went on, so.
So do you have any other stuff for item
No,
2?
I have.
Well,
We also know some numbers, so if we could organize some things maybe before, you know, this joint meeting with all the different agencies, we could address additional board members with specific information that maybe we've been too general.
Right.
If you'd like us to contact some of them, you know, we know, and we can.
Yeah, that
Okay.
would be a good idea, because I
So
think.
we can help them, you know, rev them up a little bit.
Have,
So
Because
they
we
can
all
bring
have
up the arguments.
contacts with different
Okay.
ones. I do.
have you looped back to the Resource Conservation District? 'Cause
No,
the-
we talked about that.
Remember what I reported, that they had pretty much all the same concerns as the Ag Advisory Committee, and so that we could probably do one thing that satisfies both.
Yeah, we had talked about that, and I think the spot we got, and I'm getting this from Ryan's email, was we had decided to kind of not touch that for now, because that could open more of a can of worms than we want opened. And they're not, you know, at some point in time, we have to look at this process and go, you know, we want people's support, but I don't think we should sell our soul for it.
Right.
Because the bigger picture here is, you know, we want to provide parks and recreation services to the people in the district. And, you know, because the Resource Conservation District has some issue that there might be some time in the future where we take some of their property tax, which I think is unfounded.
Oh.
You know, we can't, you know, pander to that, really, so.
But that wasn't their only concern.
They had other
That was
concerns,
one of their
right, but-
concerns, but pretty much what I remember, and tell me if you remember this differently, but my recollection is all the rest of their concerns were essentially shadowing what we've heard from Ag Advisory Committee and Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
So if we could work it out with the Farm Bureau and, I mean, the Ag Advisory Committee, both, then I would think we might want to share that with them. That might.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, if we walked in and said, here's what we've agreed with the Farm Bureau, they're happy. That's a pretty approach.
Well, and, you
They
know,
might say, okay, fine.
school district, City of Half Moon Bay, a couple others are the ones we're looking for.
So are you going to get a letter of support by any chance on the
That's what I
Half Moon Bay
emailed
City
Tony
Council
about.
agenda? The city is the
City council
critical
agenda,
one
right.
for us to get a letter
Well,
of
I'm in
support
constant
from.
contact with Alex about that, because we were talking, from the City of Half Moon Bay, because we're talking about that agreement we have to enter into, and that's high on my list now.
What-
Did you present to the city council?
No, I did not. I'm presenting in, I don't remember when.
Well,
Sometime in October.
first or third Tuesday.
Yeah. Third Tuesday.
Can you email us when that is?
Okay.
and also, you said that you just said before about something with the city.
We're talking about that property tax overlap issue we
Oh,
have with
okay.
them, so we're trying to get an agreement on that.
And you have confidence that something will be worked out that's acceptable to them and reasonable to everybody?
I have hope. I don't got good confidence. Got someone elected, so.
Are we planning to have an in-district, well-publicized, big tent public meeting?
Yes, that is planned for the 17th.
The
Okay, so,
17th.
and that's going to be at the school district then? not
Yes, and Delia's still confirming that.
So we don't have the solid confirmation of the location yet?
As far as I know, it's not.
'Cause-
It has to go to the school.
But you need to get that soon enough that we can send out the postcards.
I realize that. I think I'm following up tomorrow.
So are you ready to go with a postcard? Can we see it?
Yeah, she's already drafted some stuff up, so.
Somebody suggested to me that we actually have a photo on one side of the postcard of some sort of park and or rec activities, and I was thinking skateboard ramp.
And on that subject
No,
is,
please.
on that
What was that?
subject, does your board want to do a mailer for the
That's what I was
public
gonna make sure.
meeting, or do we want to put something in the paper?
Yeah.
Well, I think we should do both.
Both?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard enough to get people to turn up. I think we need to
Okay.
use multiple methods to encourage people to be there and get the
I
word
would
out.
also propose, if we can, if it's, works with the card, if we could blow some of, not blow them up explosively, enlarge them to a small poster size, so we could put, significantly larger pieces up in the post offices.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
not the ones that are mailed, but take the one that's mailed and make a bigger
Make it bigger,
version of it?
make it
Ah,
bigger
okay.
version. And we can, a lot of businesses around here will help, post them and stuff
Right.
like that. We want to show everybody that we're trying to show everybody, so we
Right.
can, the
Yeah.
best we possibly can to get people to go to the meeting.
Well, in addition to that, it's important to actually get people at the meeting.
But one thing too, we talked a little bit about what we want to call this meeting, because that's going to be really important. What do you want to put on the
I've just been telling everybody it's a town hall meeting.
Well,
I mean, how
when
else?
you're
We're gonna
talking-
have to-
When you're talking one-on-one with somebody, if you go to a meeting and you say that, and people have questions, you're there to answer it. But somebody gets something, you know how much mail you get, this junk mail, right? And a postcard comes and it says town hall meeting. We have to put something on that.
Oh, I
It's
think the
gonna be a
postcard should
headline.
start with "Got Parks?" question
Well,
mark.
exactly, that's the type of thing I'm bringing
Right.
up now, like, we have to start thinking of what we want to put on that postcard.
Well, let's not do that now.
Okay, that doesn't say,
Too late.
that
But you-
doesn't say
Alright.
"Got Parks," it's close.
But but you see what I mean.
Well, Delia will send around a few iterations, and you
Yeah,
guys can
yeah.
all take a look at it.
Oh, okay, and we do have the photo on the back.
I can use whatever photos you want, I just want to show you the draft.
That's going in your next review, by the way.
Can we?
Can we see that?
If the Burnham strip doesn't look very nice at the moment, but if I go through my archives and pick one of the photos when it was in better flower bloom, can we use one of my historic
If it
Burnham
works,
strip
sure.
photos here?
Oh, to put it there? But this
Okay,
is-
so
are you
remind me to
passing
dig
this
one of those
around
up,
now?
or I'll dig up a few and you can pick one.
That was a question, are we passing this around?
No, Delia's gonna send a couple iterations of that via email.
Just a thought.
So you
To
can
all
see.
of us? Okay.
Yeah,
good.
to all.
How about if the photo emphasized like a playground kind of park?
Well, that's why I said
As opposed
skateboard
to-
ramp.
The what?
Except for the skateboard ramp. But like, you know, a playground park. If people say, oh, kids playing in a park, I want to go to that meeting.
Well, then it's gonna have to
You
be,
don't like
it's gonna
that
have to be the tot lot at Quarry Park.
We've got, I
Yeah,
mean,
I've got
it
lots
doesn't
of
matter.
Well, it
those.
doesn't have to be the exact
Doesn't
one in
even
the
have to be
district.
ours.
Yeah, we could put the Moss Beach
Well,
Park.
he's not here right now.
Let's
Wait,
not,
wait,
let's
wait,
not, because,
wait. He's not
you
here
know,
right now, but Jim Blanchard lives right near that, I'm sure he's got lots of programs he could, I'm volunteering.
or,
The
you
kids in the
know,
parks are great
Too,
innings
Chuck.
that we want to
The
do.
Quarry
They're
Park.
gonna- You need to run this by me too. No, I'm serious because there are advocacy issues in how you do this. There are, I certainly don't want the skate park
Oh,
in
no,
this picture.
no.
And I hope,
Yeah,
trust you were joking
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
no,
like,
I
okay,
wouldn't.
now that's something, that's ours maybe?
by the way.
It's not even on our property.
Matthew
Yeah.
Delia and I went out and scoped out the property lines, and that skateboard ramp appears to not at all be on district-owned property.
Thank God. Says your liability counsel.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
So, there's a paragraph that's printed here and then crossed out in pen.
We can do it, we can deal with
It's
that.
track.
Big one.
I actually thought that,
What part
You
of
should
ignored
keep that
this? Are you
paragraph.
having trouble with it?
I don't know.
Okay, let's see.
all right, so,
Item three, huh?
so is that
Looks like we're on
the end of item
consent
2?
agenda.
All right, item 3, consideration of report on ongoing issues by district sewer authority mid-coast representatives. And the beginning of the report is, there hasn't been a SAM meeting since our last meeting, because our last meeting was very late in the month.
There have been several member agency manager meetings, and these are going well, thanks in part to Vivian's help. So, we've actually got one tentatively set up for October 4th, where we're gonna do a walkthrough of the major SAM components, the Montera pump station, Portola and whatnot,
Can I go on that? I've never seen the Montero pump station.
staff only. So,
All right, then the.
I'll invite you.
Then the interim
She's
general
nicer than
manager
me. She
might
hasn't
want
been
to
around as
arrange
long.
another tour for all the SAM directors.
You're welcome.
Well, maybe we should do it without the managers.
Maybe without Chuck.
She's on to you.
I'm not fighting it. So we've got that set up and a couple other things, so we're working through most of the issues we've got outstanding, like the reserve levels and the collection system agreement and all that kind of stuff, so, moving forward.
And the next Monday's SAM board meeting, of course, I don't know about closed session, but the rest of the meeting looks like it might be fairly short.
Very.
So,
I've got tips.
but guess what?
They don't work.
Vivian has now officially received my font size memo.
Oh,
I've never gotten that one.
really?
I can arrange it. When's your next review?
Maybe you've done a good job.
Looks like a nice brief consent agenda.
Okay, do we have a, so,
And Vivian, let me say, you won't hurt anybody's feelings if you head home now, okay? You've been a trooper for lasting this long, so.
I am assuming there's nothing further on the
No.
item 3. So do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Item 4, special meeting minutes. Item 5, September 2013 warrants. Item 6, August financial statements. Item 7, assessment district distribution. Anybody need to hold anything for discussion? I had a question on one of the things on warrant, but I guess I could just ask staff later.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda is approved, 4-0. Item 8, committee reports. Since we met really late last month, I don't think there's much to report now. I can't think of anything. I reported on LAFCO last time, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, hearing none, item 9, attorney's report.
No report.
Thank you. Item 10, treasurer's report.
No report.
Thank you. Item 11, general manager's report.
Nothing further to report.
Thank you. Item 12, Administrators Report.
I didn't see the secretary's report, I mentioned it's kind of been twice.
These are talkative,
Yeah, I gotta skip down here. We actually had a sewer hookup, look at that. Okay, item 13, Engineers Report, which I think I forgot to look at here. Wait a minute, there isn't one. No Engineers Report. And General Manager did not apparently send the letter to Sam that the board requested at our last meeting.
Oh, I was actually going to discuss it with Vivian, so it didn't come out of the blue. It's saved as a draft in my email.
The dumpster, or not the dumpster, the storage container is still there. And I was promised by the engineer 2 months ago that it would be gone in 2 weeks.
so was I.
So,
So yes, they put it there for the staging for construction, obviously. And
without asking us.
SRT's already profusely apologized to us as previous staff, so that's why I didn't want to send you a blind email blasting you out of the blue before I talked to you in person about it. So,
I should talk to SRT because the state said they were going to talk to the contractor and take care of it. That was,
is the contract complete?
no, they would have to move their equipment somewhere else.
Well, the only stuff that's there as of this afternoon is the rusting derelict, looks like it was sitting on the ocean floor next to the Titanic storage unit, and a porta potty, which
So if you
wasn't
could
there
get us
before.
a-
Oh, it's
Yeah.
for the force main work?
Yeah.
So it is complete. Yeah, so they should get rid of it.
I think-
actually spoke with Tim Monahan about it today, so.
What'd he say?
They just have a few things in there, but, I actually didn't get the message yet, so I'm not sure what he said. But I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Okay, so you're following up there. All right.
No
And
letter needed.
to be really clear on this, the letter was supposed to say GSD has no problem accommodating Sam, but nothing is to go on our property without advance permission from staff and direction as to where on the property it goes, because we would have allowed it, but not at all in that location. That location is absolutely the worst possible location on our property for it, and that's why I'm getting really, really annoyed that it's still there, because when you go out to El Granada Main Street, which is Avenue Portola between the post office and the hardware store, and you look down to the ocean, what do you see? Right smack in your face is this
Yeah.
storage container.
Monday
Yeah.
morning at 9 o'clock, it will be removed.
Okay. Yeah, but, you know, the critical thing going forward is to make sure that all contractors understand that it's not SAM property. And what somebody said to me, I forget who, and I probably wouldn't name the person anyway, but what somebody said to me is, well, we should just go down and park something of ours out on SAM property without asking them and see how that goes over. So,
Well, a month ago, it was supposed to all come off. And our discussion was, because it wasn't in the contract, that was storage yard, that the contractor had to find a different place for all their equipment.
Yeah.
well, like I said, I'm sure the district would have accommodated them, but we would have pointed to another location a couple hundred feet, whatever the heck direction that is, east. So, we're at the end of the meeting, so we're adjourned. Thank you all.
I was looking touch and go for a while, but